BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, warnings the government risks fear and resistance amongst farmers.
This uncertainty of slowing applications of schemes, timelines and delaying payment opportunities. What the heck's going on at a time farmers are under increased pressure?
More on that later. First, all week we are taking a closer look at winter veg. Today, it's parsnips, surely the best root veg. They are, though, a bit picky. They need a good, fine soil to grow in and are usually only grown once every 6 years in the same ground, so it can be tricky finding enough clean fields to use. A.G. Pearce and Sons, near Kings Lynn in Norfolk, cooperate with many farmers in the region to grow their crop. Anna Hill has been to see the harvest, which was supposed to be in full swing.
That's the sound of harvest, isn't it? I'm with Barry standing at Pearce Farms. We're just about to look at the parsnip harvest, but a shaft is gone.
Yes, yeah, one of the roller on the multi-step has sheared off. You never know when it's going to happen, but you just get prepared and carry the spares. And
Well, you say prepared, Barry. Yeah, you've got a fork and a bucket here, so we're going to go and look at the parsnips in the field while these guys get it fixed.
So definitely.
Now, Barry, this was planted in April.
Yeah, end of April this year. A bit later than normal, a couple of weeks due to the wet weather. We then had a pretty heavy downpour, probably 24 hours after we drilled. And then only 60% of the field really emerged, so 40% of the field had to be re-drilled. I think it was just climate, temperature, probably damp, just didn't get, and the seed just rotted.
Is that something that you have to look out for, do you think?
I think the severe erraticness of the weather is one of the major challenges.
We're going to dig. And actually, this crop is coming up really pretty clean, isn't it? You could just wipe your hand across it and see the lovely white parsnip underneath. They're looking really good. Good shape, aren't they? Yeah,
considering this was the re-drilled crop as well. This went in probably 2.5 weeks again later, so we're about 4 or 5 weeks behind a normal date. I think the key thing, like all crops, is just keeping on top of your weed control, irrigation when it's needed. They don't need as much water as carrots.
How do you look after the soil?
Crop rotation is key. I mean, we'll rotate around here probably between one in 7 years. Normally the land mass needed is huge, the pool of land. We rent as a lot. We don't own our own land anymore, but we rotate round with the local farmers that fit in their crops, whether they're doing wheat, arable crops, potato crops, and just move around accordingly to make sure that the soil is getting what it needs. You're not taking everything out and robbing it of everything. You're actually balancing the whole soil because of carbon release and things like that. You've got to make sure soil types you've got how much cultivation you need to do. You only do the minimum you need rather than going overboard.
What about the market? How is it looking for parsnips?
Yeah, we grow around about 17,500 tonnes of parsnips in the UK. 6,500 tonnes of that will go off. We actually export. So that goes.
You export parsnips?
Yep.
Where to?
France and Belgium. They take it there. They're exported out there for processing.
Did Brexit affect you on that?
Yes, in a word. I mean, just the delays, the red tape, the paperwork. At the end of the day, if that's where the market is, we'll go where the market is.
Well, we're going to go off now and see the processing, where basically they're just cleaned and washed, aren't they, and tidied up. So the parsnips have been tipped out from the tipper lorry. They've been taken up very slowly along this conveyor, up on a bit of a roller coaster ride.
We're removing the soil, so it is a lot of soil everywhere.
And you're ending up with something shiny and beautiful at the end of it.
Yeah. It's like white gold, isn't it? There's a lot of effort goes in through every stage. You never want to get a B-, do you? You always want to be in an A. That's what you strive for.
Barry standing there from A.G. Pearce in Norfolk. Scotland's fire service says rural communities need to prepare for bigger and more wildfires in the years ahead. The service is spending £1.6 million on new equipment as changing land use and the warming climate increase the risk posed by wildfires. Among the new smaller appliances which can drive down country tracks, they're also investing in industrial leaf blowers and jet washers, which can apparently be very effective at tackling the fires. BBC Scotland's environment correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
Blowing air at the flames might seem a mad move given oxygen fuels fire, but using leaf blowers is a surprisingly effective tactic that's being deployed more and more.
We've got leaf blowers, We've got drip torches, and then the main piece here is the actual fogging unit itself.
Michael Bruce from the Glentanner estate in Aberdeenshire is an expert on moorland fire management. He says a range of tools are now being loaded into all-terrain vehicles like his to help tackle one of Scotland's biggest threats, as both the fire service and landowners make themselves better prepared.
Well, globally, everyone, all of the fire managers are saying we're going to have longer fire seasons, we're going to have more intense fires and more severe fires. And in the Scottish context, it's the severe fires, which could be peat fires, that we are most concerned about, because they're the ones which absorb huge amounts of resources, eat into the peat, and generate the carbon emission.
The fire service is reviewing its rural provision with the aim of improving response times to wildfires. That might mean smaller appliances at more regular intervals, particularly in the North West Highlands. Michael Humphreys is the wildfires lead for Scottish Fire and Rescue.
Fast interaction is key for stopping a wildfire getting large. So some of the equipment that we will have, the all-terrain vehicles, the smaller double cab pickups that can get to the scene much earlier and down tracks for that early intervention is critical.
Firefighting experts from as far as Australia and Canada are in Scotland for a global wildfire conference. All agree that the threat is growing and we need to be prepared.
Kevin Keane reporting there. The government risks creating a culture of fear and resistance amongst farmers. That's according to the Nature Friendly Farmers Network. It's highlighting the suspension of grants which help farmers in England invest in infrastructure which improves the environment. That's things like better slurry storage to protect waterways or planting hedges to reduce soil erosion. Defra says the capital grant scheme, to give it its proper name, has been temporarily closed after unprecedented demand. Now this comes at the same time as other changes, which farmers say are eroding their incomes and their confidence in the schemes they've been encouraged to join, which pay for or pay towards the cost of improving the environment. Farmers in the uplands waiting for a new scheme tailored to them have been told it will be delayed until next summer. In the meantime, they can continue with existing agreements but at old payment rates, which they say haven't kept pace with inflation. And in the budget, as well as the inheritance tax changes, the Chancellor announced that the phase-out of direct subsidy payments, which began in England in 2021, will be accelerated. So a farm business expecting around £30,000 next year from the BPS, or Basic Payment Scheme, will now get around £7,000. Well, speaking to the House of Lords Environment and Climate Change Committee yesterday, the Environment Secretary Steve Reid said that while that was a difficult decision, the aim was to protect environmental schemes.
In order to seek to stabilise the economy, plug the multi-billion-pound gap in the public finances and find money to invest in broken public services, particularly the NHS, that farmers and people in rural communities use, of course, every bit as much as everybody else. We've had to take some difficult decisions. In Defra, looking at the farming part of the budget, the farming budgets, it seemed to me better to focus on the ELMS schemes and protecting that, because that is the levers we have to support farming to transition to models of farming that will be more sustainable financially as well as environmentally into the future. And therefore, something else had to give. And I'm afraid that was the basic payments scheme, which in the round offers less value for money than the SFI or other ELM schemes. Now, in managing that reduction, we sought to protect smallest farmers the most.
Well, he told peers that the capital grant scheme had to be paused as too many people applied and there was a danger of an overspend.
You know, it is disappointing whenever you have to pause something, but it's very, very important that we remain within budget. Given the financial circumstances that we're in, we can't allow some parts of the budget to overspend and causing knock-on effects on other budgets that we then have to cut. So we're simply trying to manage the budget within the financial year.
The Environment Secretary Steve Reid. Martin Lyons farms in Cambridgeshire and is the CEO of the Nature Friendly Farming Network. It was set up by farmers to help and encourage others to put nature at the heart of their farms. He says farmers are being sent a negative message.
It's the uncertainty it's giving to farmers. Many of those ambitious farmers have been delivering or are keen to deliver environmental improvements alongside food production and other outcomes. This uncertainty of slowing applications of schemes, timelines, and delaying payment opportunities for capital grants, it just is delivering uncertainty of what the heck's going on at a time farmers are under increased pressure financially, climate-wise, and other things.
So let's just talk about how it might work then. If a farmer, for instance, wanted to plant hedgerows with the idea of trying to stop soil erosion, how would that sort of idea be affected by what's happening?
Well, the time to plant hedgerows is now, not in the summer. And having this pause in access to the capital grants, that means the window for this winter will be over before those grants can be agreed. So that's another year that's going to be delayed. And every year we're delaying doing action, it takes a few years for those hedges, trees and habitats to grow up to do the action they're meant to do. And if we're in a climate and nature emergency, the action needs to be happening now, not in years to come.
And am I right in thinking that in a lot of these schemes, the farmer pays to plant the hedge and then claims the money back?
Yeah, very much so. And we've found it for our own farm business. You get your agreement for your capital grants. You have to pay out to get all the work done, evidence it, and then put your application for the grant in to get the payment for the part of what you've done.
But as the Secretary of State for the Environment has pointed out, the Defra budget is finite. They have paused applications for that particular grant because there's a danger of an overspend. They can't spend money they simply don't have.
They've committed to the budget. They've no withdrawing the old payments. So they've been telling farmers, we want you to deliver this. And then they've turned around and shut the door. And I find that really hard. You've wanted farmers to engage. Yes, you may have had a lot of applications, but to turn around and say, actually, hang on a minute, we don't really want you all to do all this is really challenging for farmers. And it really sends a real negative message to farmers saying, we're going to keep changing the goalposts if you're too ambitious in joining these schemes and delivering the outcomes the government and public money for public benefit wants to deliver, we're going to hold you back and actually say, no, we've changed our mind again.
But don't farmers have to be realistic about the budget? You can't conjure money out of nowhere as a government.
You can't just create more money, but government should be able to manage their budget significantly to put the right options in the right place to get the right outcomes, to deliver on their targets. We are delivering public goods that the public are wanting to contribute towards.
Why do you think this will create a culture of fear and resistance, as you've put it?
So we've heard very many messages coming from the government the last month or two that are actually very negative to the farming industry and sort of chopping and changing and now delayed and slowing down of rollout of schemes or not being available at the original timeframes. And I just think it sends a very negative message to the industry that saying, is the government really supporting farming and really supporting farmers who are wanting to deliver environmental improvements, climate mitigation, and underpinning food security to give us a landscape that can produce food and nature in the future?
Well, they will say, yes, we are, because in a very difficult financial situation, we have made $5 billion available over the next 2 years.
So where's that $5 billion going? And if nature and climate and these targets are priorities, what other things can they move within their budget to support farmers who are wanting to deliver that?
Martin Lyons from the Nature Friendly Farming Network. That's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Beatrice Fenton, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.